Present day, Montana mountains. The satellite anomaly was detected at 0600 hours. Major Catherine Reed stared at the screen in the Pentagon's intelligence division. For 3 months, they'd been tracking irregular encrypted communications from somewhere in the Rocky Mountains. The pattern matched known war criminal communication protocols, and this morning, they'd finally pinpointed the source. Coordinates confirmed, Lieutenant Harris said. 43.7 degree N, 110.5 degree W. Remote property, registered to James Cooper, former Army Sergeant, discharged 2014. Reed pulled up Cooper's file. Served in Afghanistan and Iraq, decorated, Purple Heart, honorable discharge after taking shrapnel to the leg. Why would a decorated veteran be harboring encrypted communications, Reed asked. Unknown, ma'am, but the encryption signature matches General Konstantin Volkov. Reed's blood ran cold. Volkov, the butcher of Kandahar, responsible for the massacre of 247 civilians in 2013, wanted by international courts for war crimes, missing for 10 years. Assemble a tactical team. We move at dawn tomorrow. Ma'am, shouldn't we coordinate with local? No. If Volkov is there, I want zero chance of a leak. Reed closed the file. This bastard has evaded justice for a decade. Not anymore. Montana. Cooper's farm. James Cooper woke to the sound of wind through pine trees. He was 53, graying, his limp more pronounced in the cold mornings. He made coffee and carried a second cup to the small cabin behind the main house. Inside, an elderly man sat by the window, watching the sunrise. Thin, frail, white-bearded. He looked like someone's grandfather. "Good morning, Konstantin," James said in Russian. "Good morning, my friend." Volkov's English was accented but clear. "You look worried today. Weather's changing. Storm coming." Volkov smiled sadly. "You were never good at lying, James." James sat across from him. They'd shared this ritual for 10 years. Coffee at dawn, chess in the afternoon, quiet evenings by the fire. "I saw tracks yesterday, down by the road, fresh. Someone's been watching." Volkov nodded slowly. "Then it is time." "Time for what?" "For truth, for justice, for whatever comes next." Volkov met his eyes. "You saved my life once, James. I will not let you throw away yours for me. We've had this conversation, and now we will have it for the last time." Volkov stood, painful and slow. "When they come, and they will come, you tell them everything. The truth, all of it. The truth will put you in prison. The truth will set you free." Volkov smiled. "I have made peace with my sins, have you?" James didn't answer, because the truth was complicated, and he wasn't sure anyone would understand. 2014, Afghanistan, Kandahar province. Sergeant James Cooper's patrol had been tracking insurgent movement for 3 days. The heat was suffocating, the terrain brutal. "Sarge, we got something," Private Martinez called. "Cave system ahead, fresh tracks." They approached cautiously. The cave entrance was hidden behind rocks barely visible. Inside they found a man. He was collapsed against the wall, bleeding from multiple gunshot wounds. Late 50s, military bearing despite his condition, and his eyes, intelligent, weary, accepting of death. "Don't move," Cooper ordered, weapon raised. The man smiled weakly. "I am not going anywhere." His English was Russian accented. Martinez checked him. "He's lost a lot of blood. Without medical attention, he's got maybe an hour." Cooper studied the man's face. Something familiar. Then recognition hit like a punch. "Jesus Christ. Konstantin Volkov." The man nodded. "You know me. Then you know what I have done. Kill me, it would be mercy." Cooper's team stared. They all knew the name. The butcher of Kandahar. The general who'd ordered a village burned with civilians inside. Women. Children. Martinez raised his weapon. "Sarge?" Cooper's finger hovered over his trigger. "1 bullet. Justice for 247 innocent people." "Please," Volkov whispered. "I am ready." Cooper stared into those weary eyes and saw something he didn't expect. Regret. Real, crushing regret. "Lower your weapon, Martinez." "Sarge, this is the butcher." "I said lower it." Cooper knelt beside Volkov. "What happened to you?" "My own men. When they learned what I did, what I ordered." Volkov coughed blood. "They shot me, left me to die. It is what I deserve." "Why'd you do it?" "The village. Because I was told. It harbored insurgents. Because I was angry. Because war makes monsters. Of good men. Volkov's eyes closed. I have lived with it. Every day. Every face. Every child. I deserve worse than death. Cooper made a decision that would haunt him for 10 years. Martinez, go back to the convoy. Tell them we found nothing. Sarge, that's an order. Go. After Martinez left, reluctantly, Cooper treated Volkov's wounds, stopped the bleeding, gave him water. Why? Volkov asked. I don't know, Cooper admitted. Maybe because killing you feels too easy. Maybe because you need to live with what you did. Or maybe, Volkov said softly, because you are a better man than I ever was. Cooper smuggled Volkov out of Afghanistan over the next week, falsified reports, used his discharge as cover. His leg injury was real, he just used it strategically. By the time anyone noticed, they were both back in the United States. Cooper had a small inheritance from his father, a cabin in Montana, remote, isolated, perfect for hiding. You can stay until you're healed, Cooper told Volkov. Then you're gone. But Volkov never left, and Cooper never asked him to, because somewhere in those first months, as Volkov healed and they talked about war and guilt and redemption, something unexpected happened. They became friends. 2016, Montana. 2 years into their arrangement, Cooper and Volkov had developed a routine. Cooper maintained the farm, small livestock, vegetables, enough to be self-sufficient. Volkov helped where he could, though his injuries had aged him prematurely. They rarely went to town. When Cooper did, he went alone. Volkov remained hidden. In the evenings they played chess and talked. Do you ever regret it? Volkov asked one night. Saving me. Cooper considered. Every day. And never. That is not an answer. It's the only answer I have. Cooper moved his knight. You killed 247 people. I should have put a bullet in your head. But you're also the man who taught me Russian, who helped me build the barn, who sits here every night, carrying more guilt than any person should. Cooper met his eyes. Which version of you do I judge? The one who gave the order? And the one who spent every day since trying to atone? Volkov shook his head. There is no atonement for what I did. Maybe not, but there's living with it. There's being better. You sound like a priest. I sound like someone trying to make sense of a decision that doesn't make sense. Cooper captured Volkov's bishop. Check. Volkov studied the board. You know, in Russia we have saying, the harshest prison is the one we build in our own mind. I have lived in that prison for 10 years. The bars are made of children's screams. The walls are made of their faces. Is that enough? Psychological torment? No, but it is what I have. Volkov moved his king. You could turn me in tomorrow, I would not resist. I know. Then why don't you? Cooper was quiet for a long moment. Because the world already has enough revenge. Maybe what it needs is one example of mercy. Even for monsters. Especially for monsters. Because if we can't show mercy to the worst of us, what hope is there for the rest of us? Volkov's eyes were wet. You are fool, James Cooper. Probably. But you are good fool. Volkov smiled. Checkmate. Cooper looked down. He'd been so focused on the conversation, he'd missed Volkov's strategy. You sneaky bastard. I learned from the best. They laughed, and in that moment it was easy to forget that one was a war criminal and the other his protector. They were just two old soldiers, trying to find peace in a world that offered none. The tactical team surrounded Cooper's property in the pre-dawn darkness. 12 operatives, night vision, full tactical gear. Major Reed watched from the command vehicle. All units, stand by. She studied the thermal imaging. 2 heat signatures, one in the main house, one in the smaller cabin behind. Team Alpha, main house. Team Bravo, cabin. On my mark. She checked her watch. 3, 2, 1, mark. They moved in perfect synchronization. Cooper woke to the sound of his door being kicked in. Before he could react, tactical lights blinded him, voices shouting, "Don't move! Hands where we can see them!" Cooper raised his hands slowly. "Easy. I'm not armed." They searched him, cleared the house, zip-tied his hands. Major Reed entered. "James Cooper. That's me. I'm Major Catherine Reed, Army Intelligence. Where is Konstantin Volkov?" Cooper's heart sank. They knew. "I don't know who—" "Don't lie to me, Sergeant. We tracked encrypted communications to this location. We know he's here." Outside, Team Bravo radioed, "Target acquired. Male, elderly, unarmed. Cabin is secure. Reed looked at Cooper. You hid a war criminal for 10 years. Do you understand the severity of what you've done? Yes, ma'am. Then start talking. They brought Volkov to the main house. He walked slowly, hands also zip-tied, but his bearing was dignified. When he saw Cooper, he said in Russian, I told you to tell the truth. In English, Reed ordered. I told him to tell the truth, Volkov repeated. Whatever happens to me, Sergeant Cooper should not be punished. He showed mercy. That is not a crime. Harboring a war criminal is a federal offense, Reed said. You're both under arrest. She read them their rights, while her team photographed everything. The cabin, the chess set, the books in Russian and English. One operative held up a notebook. Ma'am, you should see this. It was Volkov's diary, 10 years of entries, all in Russian. Get a translator, Reed ordered. She studied the two men. Cooper, stoic and resigned. Volkov, calm and almost relieved. Why? She asked Cooper. Why protect him? Because he asked me to kill him, Cooper said quietly. And I decided that living with his guilt was a harsher punishment than death. That's not your decision to make. Maybe not. But I made it anyway. Reed turned to Volkov. Do you have anything to say? Volkov met her eyes. Only this. Sergeant Cooper is a good man who made a difficult choice. I am a bad man who has tried to be better. Judge us both accordingly. Reed gestured to her team. Take them in. Separate vehicles. No communication. As they were led out, Cooper and Volkov exchanged one last look. No words needed. After 10 years, they understood each other perfectly. Fort Harrison Military Base, Detention Center. Cooper sat in the interrogation room for 6 hours before Reed finally entered. She placed Volkov's translated diary on the table. I've read this, she said. All of it. Do you know what's in here? No, ma'am. Confessions. Detailed accounts of the Kandahar massacre. Names of officers involved. Locations of mass graves we didn't know about. Reed leaned forward. Also, daily entries about guilt, nightmares, suicidal ideation, and gratitude. For you. Cooper said nothing. He writes about you like you're his only friend, his confessor, his jailer, and his savior. Reed opened to a marked page. James Cooper saved my life so that I could live with my sins. It is the cruelest mercy. It is the greatest gift. She closed the diary. I came here ready to charge you with treason, to see you as a traitor who protected a monster. But after reading this, she sat back. I don't know what to think. Neither do I, Cooper admitted. I've spent 10 years asking myself if I did the right thing. And? I don't have an answer. I know he's guilty. I know he deserves punishment. But I also know that the man I've lived with for 10 years isn't the man who gave that order. He's different. People don't change, Cooper. Don't they? Isn't that what we hope for? That people can be better than their worst moments? Cooper met her eyes. I'm not saying he shouldn't face justice. I'm saying he's already been facing it every single day. Reed was quiet. Then, tell me about the day you found him. Cooper told her everything. The cave, the decision, the 10 years since. When he finished, Reed asked, Do you regret it? Every day. And never. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. In another room, a different interrogator questioned Volkov. Why did Cooper spare you? Because he is better man than I am. That's not an answer. It is only answer that matters. Volkov coughed. His health had deteriorated. You want me to say he had ulterior motive, that he wanted information, that he was weak or stupid. But truth is simple. He showed mercy when he did not have to. And you took advantage of that mercy. Every day. But I also tried to honor it. I worked his farm. I helped where I could. I lived quietly. I hurt no one. You hurt 247 people in Kandahar. Yes, and I carry them with me. Their faces, their names. I know them all now. I have spent 10 years learning who they were. Volkov pulled out a worn piece of paper. This is Amina Karzai, age 8. She wanted to be teacher. This is Hassan Durrani, age 43. He was carpenter. This is... Stop. No. You want to know about my victims? I will tell you about every single one. Volkov's voice broke. Because they deserve to be remembered as people, not numbers. The interrogator stared at the list. Hundreds of names, written in Volkov's shaky handwriting. You memorized them? I owed them that much. It does not bring them back, it does not make me innocent, but it means they are not forgotten. 3 days later, the story leaked to the press. By noon, it was national news. Decorated veteran hid war criminal for decade, the butcher of Kandahar found living peacefully in Montana. Military investigates how Volkov evaded justice for 10 years. Public reaction was explosive. Half the country called Cooper a traitor. The other half debated whether he'd done something more complicated than simple betrayal. Social media erupted. He should be in prison with Volkov. Maybe we need to rethink what justice means. 247 dead children. There's no forgiveness for that. But isn't living with that guilt worse than death? Major Reed watched the news coverage from her office. Her phone rang constantly. Superiors demanding answers, press wanting statements, veterans groups outraged or supportive. The case had become bigger than either man. It had become a referendum on justice, mercy, guilt, and redemption. Her commanding officer, General Marks, called her in. "The Pentagon wants Volkov tried at The Hague," he said. "International War Crimes Tribunal, public trial, maximum publicity." And Cooper? That's more complicated. Technically, he violated federal law. But politically, Marks rubbed his temples. We've got veteran groups defending him, saying he showed the kind of mercy that defines American values. And we've got victims' families demanding he face charges for protecting their loved one's killer. What's your read, sir? My read is that this is a mess with no good answers. Marks looked at her. What's yours? Reed thought about the diary, about Cooper's face during interrogation, about Volkov's list of names. I think Cooper made an impossible choice and lived with it. I think Volkov is guilty of horrific crimes and knows it. And I think we're about to turn them both into symbols instead of people. So what do? We let them speak. Public hearing. Let Cooper explain himself. Let Volkov face his accusers. Then let a court decide. That's risky. The press is already everywhere. At least this way we control the narrative. Reed stood. Give them a chance to be heard. That's all I'm asking. Marks considered. All right. Congressional hearing in 2 weeks. Both men testify. But Reed. Sir? If this blows up, it's on you. Understood, sir. Before the congressional hearing, Major Reed arranged something unprecedented. A private meeting between Volkov and the families of his victims. 17 family members had traveled to Washington. They'd lost children, parents, siblings in Kandahar. Volkov sat in a conference room, shackled but calm. When the families entered, some wept. Some glared with pure hatred. Some looked confused. This frail old man didn't match the monster in their nightmares. Amira Hassan spoke first. Her daughter had died in the fire. You killed my baby. She was 6 years old. Her name was Layla. She wanted to be a doctor. Volkov met her eyes. I know. I have carried Layla's name with me for 10 years. It does not bring her back. But I remember her. You remember her? Amira's voice rose. You destroyed her. You burned her alive. Yes. Volkov didn't look away. I did. And I cannot undo it. I can only tell you that I am sorry and that I know those words mean nothing. Another man, Omar Karzai, stood. My son Hassan was 12. He played soccer. He laughed all the time. What do you remember about him? He died trying to save his younger sister. He was brave. He was a better man at 12 than I have been in my entire life. Omar lunged forward. Security caught him. He sobbed. You don't get to honor him. You killed him. I know. But he deserves to be remembered for his bravery. They all do. Volkov pulled out his worn list. I have written down every name, every detail I could learn about them. It is not redemption. It is acknowledgement. They were people. They mattered. And I destroyed them. A woman named Parisa spoke quietly. Why? Why did you do it? Because I was angry. Because I was told they harbored insurgents. Because war had made me cruel. Volkov's voice shook. There is no good reason. There is only evil that I committed and must face. The meeting lasted 3 hours. Some families screamed, some wept, some sat in silence. At the end, Amira asked, what punishment would be enough? Volkov looked at her. There is no punishment that would be enough, but whatever the court decides I will accept. I owe you that much. After the families left, Reed asked Volkov, was that as hard as you expected? Harder, because they are not abstract victims anymore. They are people who loved people I killed. Volkov looked exhausted, but they deserve to face me, to say what needed to be said. And Cooper, what does he deserve? Freedom. He should not suffer for my sins. He chose to protect you. He chose mercy over vengeance. If that is a crime, then your system is broken. Congressional Hearing Room, Washington, D.C. The gallery was packed. Press, veterans, victims' families, activists on both sides. James Cooper sat at one table, Konstantin Volkov at another, both in formal clothing, both looking older than their years. Senator Patricia Chen gavelled the hearing to order. We're here to examine the case of Sergeant James Cooper and General Konstantin Volkov. This is not a trial. That will come later. This is a fact-finding hearing. Sergeant Cooper, you'll testify first. Cooper stood, took the oath, and sat. Sergeant Cooper, why did you spare Konstantin Volkov's life? Cooper spoke clearly. Because in that moment, killing him felt wrong. Not illegal, not unjust, just wrong. He was already dying, already abandoned by his own men, already living with what he'd done, and I decided that was punishment enough, even knowing what he'd done, especially knowing what he'd done, because if I killed him, he'd escape his guilt. By letting him live, I made him face it every day. A senator interrupted. But you didn't just let him live. You hid him, protected him, became his friend. Yes, sir. How do you justify that? Cooper took a breath. I can't. Not in a way that makes sense to anyone but me. All I know is that the man I found in that cave was already destroying himself from the inside, and the man I've lived with for 10 years has tried every day to be better than his worst moment. Maybe that's not enough, but it's something. The families of his victims would disagree. They have every right to. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm explaining my choice. Another senator leaned forward. Did Volkov manipulate you, use psychological tactics? No, sir. If anything, I manipulated him. I kept him alive against his will. I made him face his guilt daily. I was his jailer as much as his protector. And now, do you regret it? Cooper looked at Volkov. Every day, and never. That's contradictory. Yes, sir, but it's honest. Volkov testified next. General Volkov, did you order the massacre at Kandahar village? Yes. Did you know there were civilians present? I believed there were insurgents. I was told there were insurgents. But yes, I knew civilians were there too, and I ordered the attack anyway. Why? Because I was angry. Because I had lost men. Because war had made me stop seeing people as people. Volkov's voice was steady. There is no excuse, only explanation. And Sergeant Cooper, did you manipulate him? No. He saved my life despite my protests. He kept me alive despite my guilt. He was kinder to me than I deserved. Are you grateful? Every day. But also every day I wish he had killed me. It would have been easier. A senator asked, what would you say to the families? Volkov looked directly at the gallery where several family members sat. That I am sorry, that I carry your loved ones with me, that I know my words mean nothing, but that I will face any punishment you deem appropriate. I will testify at The Hague. I will cooperate fully, and I will spend whatever time I have left trying to ensure no one else suffers as you have. Amira Hassan stood. You can't give them back. No, I cannot. So why should we show you mercy? You should not. I do not ask for mercy. I only ask to be held accountable. Then go to prison for the rest of your life. That is what you deserve. I agree. 3 weeks later, the verdicts came down. Konstantin Volkov, guilty of war crimes, sentenced to life imprisonment without parole, to be served in the United States before potential extradition to The Hague. James Cooper, guilty of harboring a fugitive and obstruction of justice, sentenced to 5 years in federal prison with possibility of parole after 3. The courtroom erupted. Supporters of Cooper protested the sentence. Victims' families protested it was too lenient. Outside, protesters clashed. Free Cooper versus Justice for Kandahar. But inside the courtroom, Cooper and Volkov had one final moment. I am sorry, Volkov said. You should not go to prison for my sins. I'm going to prison for my choice. There's a difference. Cooper extended his hand. Take care of yourself, Konstantin. Volkov shook it. You are a good man, James Cooper. Better than this world deserves. No. I'm just a man who made a hard choice and lived with it. They were separated. Different prisons, different futures, but connected forever by 10 years of shared mornings, chess games, and difficult conversations about guilt, mercy, and what it means to be human. 3 years later, James Cooper was released on parole. He'd served his time quietly, no incidents, model prisoner. He returned to Montana. His farm was overgrown, the cabin empty, but he set about rebuilding. Konstantin Volkov remained in federal prison. His health had declined severely. Doctors gave him months, maybe a year. They weren't allowed contact, but Cooper sent a letter through official channels. "Dear Konstantin, I don't know if you'll receive this, but I wanted you to know I'm home. The farm is recovering. The mountains are still beautiful. People still debate what I did. Some call me a traitor. Some call me merciful. I don't know what I am. Just someone who made a choice and lived with it. I think about our mornings, the chess games, the conversations. I don't regret them. Even knowing the cost, I hope you've found some peace." James Volkov received the letter in his cell. He read it slowly, smiled, and wrote back, "Dear James, thank you for the mountains, for the mornings, for making me face what I did instead of escaping into death. I go to sleep every night with the faces of Kandahar village. I wake every morning with their names. It is unbearable. It is what I deserve. But I also wake with memories of you teaching me English idioms, of chess games where you always let me win, of quiet evenings where I felt almost human again. You gave a monster a chance to be a man. That is mercy beyond measure. I do not ask forgiveness, but I thank you." Konstantin, 6 months later. Konstantin Volkov died in federal prison. Heart failure, age 73. He left his body to medical science and his small possessions to the victims' fund he'd established with money from selling his story rights. His final request, that his ashes be sent to Kandahar, to the mass grave site, so he could be with those he'd killed. James Cooper attended no funeral, but he stood on his mountain looking east and said a prayer in Russian, for the man he'd saved, for the people that man had killed, for the impossible weight of mercy in an unforgiving world. A journalist came to interview Cooper 6 months after Volkov's death. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "Knowing how it all turned out?" Cooper thought for a long moment. "I regret that 247 people died. I regret that Volkov gave the order. I regret that war creates situations where good men do evil things." He looked at the mountains. "But do I regret showing mercy to a dying man? No, because the alternative, becoming the kind of person who can kill without hesitation, that's not who I want to be. Even for someone who committed atrocities? Especially for them, because if we can't show mercy to the worst of us, we lose our own humanity. The families would disagree. They have every right to. Their grief is valid. Their anger is justified. But my mercy doesn't invalidate their justice. Both can exist. That's complicated." "Yes, it is." Cooper smiled sadly. "But life is complicated, and anyone who tells you otherwise is lying." Years later, a documentary was made about the case, The Mountain Secret, Mercy and Justice in Modern America. It interviewed everyone: Cooper, the victims' families, the military officials, legal scholars. No one agreed on whether Cooper did the right thing, but everyone agreed on one thing: he made an impossible choice and lived with the consequences. And in a world of easy judgments and absolute certainties, maybe that was the most honest thing anyone could do. Cooper never remarried, never left Montana, never stopped carrying the weight of what he'd done. On quiet mornings, he still made 2 cups of coffee, old habit. And sometimes he could almost hear Volkov's voice saying, "Checkmate, my friend, checkmate."